Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Mignot. This is part of my amazing series called 29 Days of Magic, where I interview an amazing Black woman every single day for 29 straight days. And today I am super delighted to have Lule Demmissie, who is the former CEO of eToro US. She has an amazing backstory. You're going to love hearing about it. Take a listen. Hi, Lule.
Hello, good afternoon.
It's great to have you on the podcast.
I'm delighted to be here with you.
Yay! So, first question is always the same. Answer is always awesome. I'm sure yours will be no different. So, Lule, what was your first job?
My first job, I was a board writer at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. You know, in those days in Nairobi, they actually didn't have digital trading. So I was a board writer where people like screamed out their prices and I wrote down the ups and downs for other kinds of stocks. I know.
Okay.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh, how old were you?
I was probably 18.
That's incredible. Oh
Isn't
my,
that incredible? It was amazing.
yes.
Yeah, I was hooked into capital markets long before that, but that really hooked me.
If it's only up from there. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty incredible. Okay. All right. So once you start there, how do we get to where we are right now? What's that career journey been like?
It's been bumpy and exciting and nerve-wracking and a lot of hard work and a lot of joy. I love the capital markets, so the topic itself jazzes me up all the time. But going through the corporate structure in America was a little challenging, and then I'm an immigrant. And so, all that comes with immigrating and getting your papers and your green card and all that stuff that comes with it. But it's been quite a ride. I've been blessed.
Oh, awesome. So, okay, so you're an immigrant, you came to the US, and then you built this career. Like, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced along the way?
Part of it was just, when I was coming up, which was like in the early 2000s, you didn't really see Black people, let alone a Black woman or a queer Black woman in finance. So part of it was just being an alien in this space. Part of it was figuring out how to get legitimate, amazing employment while I'm also getting sponsored. And then of course the challenge of, working in banking and learning all of that. But that was the last piece of it was the least difficult part.
Oh, so tell me more about this. Like, what is it like being a queer Black woman in finance? Like, I know it's like you have like a quadruple whammy on you in working.
Yeah. It's funny because at the beginning it was hard because I was a unicorn. And you could definitely sense that I was always an outsider in the room. And opportunities were not as abundant. And, I was always the assumed assistant, or no one ever assumed that I belonged in the room. As an analyst, as a VP, as an associate, none of it. But then after a while, because at the end of the day, like you either can let the imposter syndrome eat you alive or you can conquer her.
Hmm.
And I conquered her. And by that time, I think because I had conquered her, I became actually quite adept code switching. And so then that became the superpower, right? The ability to code switch. And it turns out that that's actually one of the most valuable skills you can have. And so I feel like it was harder at the beginning and then it got much easier because I took whatever liability there was and turned it into an asset. And then the experience, I got more experience. I leaned into lots of new experiences. I don't have an aversion to fear, which helped me learn. I learned a lot because of that. I took different careers. I went to different companies and learned different things, especially once I got my green card. So I think that those were the experiences of my early time. And then there's this moment we're in, right? Where I feel like, wait a second, am I back in the early 2000s again?
Well.
And identity is the sole, sort of thread again, and the brown identity is the thing that's supposed to leave the room again. So like it's a really interesting, not in a good way, but interesting nonetheless, ricochet.
Yeah, I think a ricochet is actually a really good way of explaining it. Ricochet, white lash, are all I think the terms that folks are sort of seeing now. It's like, why are we removing stuff from 1965? Why are you openly saying that it's only white men who are competent? Like, what is wrong with you people?
Well, power never gives up easily, right?
No, kind of what I said to someone I was doing an interview with yesterday. The world's getting browner, and that just is freaking certain people out. And so, whatever it takes to try to hold on to power to maybe stay in power for another 5 to 10 years, they're going to try and do. Uh,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
it's
the world is not getting as browner as fast as we all think. So it's interesting that the paranoia has kicked in like 3, 4 decades ahead of its curve.
exactly. Well, I also think, as I've read many times, that like having a black president for 8 years has broke their brains.
I don't know if that's true, but well, that's a conversation for another year. As a person who's a capital markets sort of lover of capital markets,
Mhm.
I have a different perspective, which is that I think that in a multiracial world and society, it's always best to focus on economic threads, common
Mhm.
ground, rather than identity, because I just feel like everybody has economics in common.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, do you not want to make money? That's the thing that always blows my mind. Like, this is about economics, and
Well, people are gonna make money in the next few years for sure.
oh,
It's just
without
that
question.
they poisoned it with like really negative identity stuff. But I think they'll make money. I mean, I had lots of issues with some of the reasons that I felt like I'm a businesswoman, I'm an executive, so I had different perspective on regulations and how they were being weaponized. And so it's not a simple black and white answer, but
No.
it's tragic to me that we've gone backwards on the identity politics side of it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest part about all of it. It's just tragic. Like, oh, really? So, you've become this amazing CEO. You've had, a plethora of unique experiences. You talked about how you overcame imposter syndrome, and I know a lot of folks today still have that. What are a couple of things that you did that really help you get over that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it you never really get rid of it, especially when you have things like that are just so toxic, like a D&I, anti D&I executive order, right? So like there's always whenever you're feeling like when somebody tells you in overt ways you do not belong, you can't help but to feel like an imposter, right? Any psychologist, any socioeconomics sort of analysis will tell you that. So I think the way I felt about it is you can't eject it, so just make it part of you, right? So I often say I have an imposter on my left hand side and a warrior on the right hand side, or vice versa, because I'm left handed. So
Yeah.
I always try to respect that, within me is a warrior and within me is a person sometimes who feels like the system wants to eject her. And I think that if you just embrace it for what it is, but not let it get into your soul, it helps you.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that's a great way of viewing it. And, as a fellow lefty, I get the dichotomy between the two. So talk to me about a time when you had a challenge, and it can be business or personal, and you're like, there's no way I'm gonna get through this. And then you did.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've had many of those. And the reason is not because I'm a victim. It's because I always tell this to people. It's because I took a lot of risks,
Hmm.
right? And with risk comes reward, but with risk comes a lot of scar tissue, right? Because nothing is guaranteed. So I've had a lot of scar tissue. And one that comes to me is I remember once I had a fairly large initiative that I had spearheaded to help a bank that I was working for to build out its wealth business. And I felt like building the solution, because I was a product builder, building the solution would be too long of an arc for getting to market. And so I decided to partner with somebody that was doing this already, but they didn't have scale. And so we were going to partner and use their products and sort of API their products into our experience, and then sell it to our customers for speed to market and product fit. And I think it was like the eve of the deal, the other party called me up and said, no, we're going in a different direction. And I had already sunk quite a bit of money into this project.
Oh,
And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to go to my boss and resign because this was my call and I've lost a lot of money. And so I went to her and I told her this is what happened. I remember I had like knots in my stomach. As I said, I've had many knots in my stomach. And I told her, listen, I cannot have this go downstream. This was my call. This was my decision. And it was the right partnership for us, but the other party just sort of, abandoned ship. She laughed and she said, what the heck are you talking about? She's like, do you think I hired you so you could sit in a corner? just collect the beans I got. She's like, I hired you because you're a warrior. She's like, this is what comes with the territory. It was a big shock to me because I've actually had in my career most people who are CYA people, right? Who
Right.
come up the corporate ladder just covering their backsides, right? Always covering their backsides. So it was really wonderful to find a leader that understood that risk and reward are the other side of each coin. And so that was a really delightful moment. And one that I felt like, okay, wow, like I have met somebody who really inspires me as a leader, and this is actually my North Star. This is how I want to be. So I've had lots of experiences like that. And it was interesting because the thing I feel really strongly about is failing out loud. So I told her, listen, okay, if you're going to really say that, and that's what's going to happen, I want to have a town hall the next business day and tell everybody what happened. I don't want to explain it away. I don't want to skulk in a corner and be like, oh, Lule made a mistake. I'm going to wear my mistake like a battle scar. And then we're going to take the lessons from it and do something different. And we did. We actually learned a lot from that experience. We went to market. We did well. So it's part of it was also just like the lesson of the how to navigate that failure, taking responsibility for failure, which I think is leadership, but then also failing out loud in front of people so that they know what courage looks like.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Because it's like you're not gonna win every battle, but damn it, try.
Try and also like don't hide the losses. People don't like people like one of the things that I think is really important is that people can sniff out a leader that hides losses. It's not a leader. That's somebody who just made their way through the ranks because they knew somebody.
Right. Like this is the thing that I oftentimes see a lot of. It's like there's a CYA leader. Like you have nothing to show for it, but somehow you are there. And then you have the leaders who are like, you've seen them in the trenches, you've seen them win and you've seen them lose. And everybody always wants to work for the leader who takes the risk. But
Absolutely.
like
I
that's all it
totally
has
agree.
been.
I totally agree. People walk through walls for leaders like that.
Yeah, and I've seen it in my own career, and like when I went back, did it back to corporate, and I was like, wow, there are a lot of folks who just, okay, you just got here because some folks liked you.
And you knew somebody, right? And
They
that's
knew
the thing
somebody.
it's really and I don't begrudge people those people by the way, which is why I find this sort of like a dark sense of humor out of all of the real politics we're living through right now, um, because it's so ironic to me that anybody would think that any color person, any gender, doesn't have average performers in it. Everybody, every group
Average.
has a,
Average
that is
and
the
below
definition of
average.
average. That is the very definition of
That's why
average.
it's called average.
There are people who are below that average. So it's at the end of the day, it's not that I begrudge people who got in the room because they knew somebody. It's more just like I don't think those people should be leaders.
Yeah, I'm cool if you being in the room. Totally cool if you being in the room, but you should not be a leader.
Not if you're going to just be operating on a CYA model.
Yeah, you're gonna do everything. Like, I call them the spreadsheet people. It's like you can write a really good spreadsheet, but like, are you gonna go into battle and like find the solution and have to twist some arms and go back channel and find out what will make this person happy and make that person happy to get them to agree? No, but you can write a spreadsheet.
Yeah, and everybody, it's like it takes different strokes, right? I
Oh
think
yeah.
that the thing that I feel really strongly about, especially in the era we're living in, is that real leaders should be the ones rising because I think you see that when you don't have courageous leaders, you pay for it as a society.
Yeah, or you roll over and just be like, oh, well, it won't be that bad, so we'll just go with this versus
Mm-hmm.
folks who's like, no, this is how it's got to be, or we're gonna hit a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating, good stuff. So you've built this amazing career and you've done all this amazing, amazing work. What do you think you'd tell 18-year-old Lule?
18-year-old Lule. I would probably, I mean, she was so singularly focused to make America her home, right? That I don't know if she would have heard me, she would have heard me, but I would have told her to take risks early, much earlier than I did. But I don't know if she would have heard me because she was so singularly focused on making sure she was sponsored and she had a green card. So for the first several years of my career, I was a model immigrant. you
Ah,
know, the employee that everybody wanted on their project that, smiled and was friendly and people who fought each other would want me in the room, right? Because I felt like what I had to navigate was make sure that a company sponsored me, right?
Mhm.
So that had a cost to it, which is that I didn't take risk, but I learned. I was a workhorse. I was a model immigrant. So I would probably tell her, take more risks, but I don't know if she would have heard me.
Well, hopefully the 18-year-olds listening right now will understand the importance of taking the risks because look what you've been able to create as an incredible career.
Yeah.
So for you at this point, what do you do for your self-care?
It's interesting. So I had been working since, as you know, since I was
Yeah, there's
like
a
16 or 18,
market
right?
on the ball.
Like really working hard. I mean, I had summer jobs before that as well, but like what I would consider to be professional. I've been working since I was 18. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to take a break recently. So I took a break to spend time with family, to care for personal things. And that felt like a luxury for if you speak to any immigrant, like
Yes,
that makes no sense. It's like, what?
yeah,
Do you have
same.
inherited wealth? No, I don't have wealth. It just feels like a luxury that somebody who had the biography I did would never take. But I
You're
took
not
it.
supposed to do it. You're not supposed to.
Yeah, I took it and I took a break and I did different things. I wrote a book, I wrote music, so it's really nice.
It's amazing. Yeah, there is this thing of when you're an immigrant, because same. But also, I think we're living parallel lives, Lily, because I also took a break. Like, and it was the first time I hadn't worked since I was 17.
Yeah, see?
And I was like, oh my God.
It's scary too, right? Because
Because again, I'm an
the
immigrant and
work is
yeah,
the work is part of the blanket, right? The security blanket. So it's a little scary, but you know what? If I'm going to talk courage, I have to do different things.
exactly. And I think the thing that I found, in not working for a little bit, like, oh, wait, this is actually important to take a moment to step back and figure out what you want to do next. And like to just breathe, because that
Yep.
is the biggest challenge that we have. It's like, okay, it'll make us better leaders if we take a time to assess, figure out what we really want to do, and then, run through walls and make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I am a beast of a worker when it comes to that, right? My work ethic is really strong, and so I do have to make sure that I refuel.
Yeah, I think the refuel thing is, I think Black women have been on E for a long time. So like, let's take some time to like fill the tank back up and not just keep going, 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 because that's not good either. It's wonderful. You have such a wealth of great advice. So I have to ask, do you have a give and or ask of the audience?
Ooh, I love those questions. I wasn't prepared for that one. I wasn't prepared for any of these, but that one's really good. So a give. I'd say the give. Don't give in to a feeling of being a victim. The fact that the rest of the world either rejects your identity or who you are or doesn't accept you has nothing to do with your core self inside. And not to give into sort of like feeling down about that. Like there's a difference between what the world does and what your worth is as a human, and making sure that you commune with others and you make sure that you preserve that center. That's what I would say is my is that an ask? That's an ask, right?
Works, yeah, it works.
And so what's my give? What's a give? What kind of give are you talking about? Like example of a give?
Gives can be advice, gives can be recommendations on a book, gives can be recommendations for something to read, anything you want.
Oh, okay, so it's a give from my side. So the give from my side would be don't navel gaze. I would say navel gazing is a really dangerous thing that we do right now. And my give to you would be to read books and podcasts that get you out of navel gazing. That's the gift I could give you. Because right now, it's really easy to constantly look in the mirror and tell yourself what's wrong.
Oh, I love it. Let's like look out instead of just looking in all the time. Like look
Yeah,
out, do
don't
things.
look in all the time. It's not healthy.
Oh, I love that. That's a great one. Okay, and last question. What's one thing that brings you joy?
Oh my God, there's so many things that give me joy. I had a wonderful mother when she's still with me, but when she was living, she taught me the art of like living in the very present. She was very good at that. And I would say that that is probably living in the present is something that really like I practice, and whatever struggle I'm going through, I try to adhere to, because I feel like tomorrow, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Yesterday's gone, so you can learn from it, but it's like you can't ruminate over it constantly. And it's hard not to ruminate. I know that, but living in the present.
I love that.
There's this beautiful quote from Aristotle, I believe, that I try to live by. And it's really hard to live by. I fail at it most of the time, but I really, every day I reset like it's a new, fresh day. And the quote is, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new.
Just preaching sermons here, Lule. My goodness.
Well, that is definitely not me. I love that quote, but that is not me. It's actually Socrates.
Yeah, but you just said it. So much from memory. And so we're claiming it under the Hallelujah. So, oh my gosh. Oh my God, incredible. Lule, you are just remarkable in every way. And oh my God, I could keep talking to you for hours. Your wit and your wisdom and your just total badassery is amazing. Um,
Aw.
I know that you will inspire folks to thrive and to look out instead of in when they listen to your words today. So thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Thank you for so much for doing this, for shining a light for a group of folks, that carry the world a lot and get trampled on a lot. So
My absolute pleasure. And we'll put all details in the show notes about Lule. And that is our show.